From a short video I have shared to you, can you guess what I am going to talk about today? Yes, Teacher Nadira wants to tell you about the body defense. Whether you realize it or not, we are coming into contact with countless pathogens every single day in everything we do. These are bacteria and viruses that could potentially do great harm to us. Pathogens can enter our body through respiratory system, digestive system, excretory system, and our skin. These pathogens need to be destroyed by our body. But do you know how our body defends itself against infections? Fortunately, every human possesses an immune system that is well equipped to protect our body. So let's take a look on how it works. Our immune system can be split up into two parts. The first part is non-specific body defense mechanism, and the second part is specific body defense mechanism. The non-specific is the part that is always ready to go. It begins with first line of defense like the skin and a variety of mucous membranes. This separates what is inside from what is outside. But of course, there are a lot of ways for pathogens to get past this barrier. That is why we have second line of defense, like phagocytes, that inhibit the spread of the invaders throughout the body. Then, there is the specific body defense mechanism. This is much more sophisticated as it involves a response that is specific to the type of invader, made possible by things called antibodies. These two types of body defense mechanisms communicate and work together to keep us healthy and safe every day. We will go further into it later. Let's start by taking a closer look at non-specific body defense mechanism, starting with the surface barriers, skin and mucous membranes. The human skin is made of a tough layer, so as long as it is unbroken, it will be difficult to be penetrated by microorganisms. Microorganisms can easily get into the body if there is a wound or if the skin is injured. Sweat and sebum secreted by the skin contain chemicals that can kill those microorganisms. Wherever we have natural openings and body cavities such as digestive tract and respiratory tract, these are lined with mucous membranes that have important features. Microorganisms that enter the respiratory tract are filtered by nasal hairs and trapped by mucus that lining the nasal cavity. Mucus tends to be acidic, which inhibits bacterial growth. But, of course, no matter how effective these are, some pathogens will still get through the barrier. That is where the second line of defense comes into play. For this kind of defense, it involves the inflammatory response. Let's mention phagocytes, which can perform phagocytosis. This is when a cell engulfs some pathogen or other debris and it sits inside in a vesicle. This vesicle will merge with a lysosome, which has acid hydrolase enzymes that can digest whatever is nearby, leaving it in tiny pieces. These pieces then leave the cell by exocytosis, unable to do any harm. The biggest and best phagocytes are macrophages, which are derived from white blood cells. So that covers the basics regarding the non-specific body defense mechanism. What about the specific body defense mechanism? This is the part of the immune system that can learn about any foreign substance it comes into contact with, which we can call it antigens. This part develops the ability to protect the body from that specific antigen anytime in the future. To understand this, we have to learn about antibodies. Antibodies are protein produced by white blood cells and they circulate into bloodstream looking for pathogens, which they are able to mark such that phagocytes can recognize them for destruction. So, what are these antigens? Antigens are foreign substances that come from outside the body, such as pathogens, toxin molecules, and blood cells from other blood groups. The part of the foreign substance that interact with the immune system is called the antigenic determinant. An antibody will bind in a way that resembles enzyme-substrate interactions. That is how the antibody will destruct antigen. Now, let's move on to immunization. It is an effort to stimulate the body defense against infection in babies, children, and adults by injecting vaccines. A vaccine contains antigens obtained from a part of the whole structure of a weakened or a dead virus or bacterium. Antigens stimulate the body's immune system by forming immunity against certain infections. Immunity can be classified into two types, passive immunity and active immunity. Both immunities can be obtained naturally or artificially. Let us go through one by one. It is called a passive immunity when the body gains antibody from external sources. Passive immunity can be obtained naturally when a baby receives antibody from breast milk or from the mother's blood that flows across the placenta. As you can see from the graph, this passive natural immunity is temporary and short-lived. It lasts for the first few months after the birth of the baby. Next, it is called passive artificial immunity when an antiserum is injected into the patient's body. The antiserum fights against pathogens without interrupting the patient's immune system. Antiserum is a clear liquid in the blood that contains antibodies to prevent diseases. We can see that from graph, the immunity of passive artificial is fast and temporary. What about active immunity? It refers to the body produces its own antibodies when stimulated by antigens. Active natural immunity occurs when a person recovers from an infection. Take a look at this graph. You can see that during the first infection, the antibody produced is at a low level and does not achieve the immunity level. But during the second time infection, the antibody produced exceeds the immunity level and immunity is achieved. It lasts long after the infection. For active artificial immunity, it occurs when a vaccine that contains a dead or weakened pathogen is injected into the body, and the immune system responds by producing antibodies. From its graph, the antibody exceeds immunity level, showing that it will last long after infection. Now, you can distinguish both immunities clearly, right? Human body is made up of various systems including immune system. When there is an imbalance in the body or too much toxins, our immune system will become weak. Some of the causes that weaken our immune system are exposure to polluted air, exposure to pesticide, stress, and excessive intake of sugar. What are the practices you can do to strengthen your immune system? Getting enough sleep and rest, exercising and inhaling fresh air. Do not smoke and Do not let yourself exposed to cigarette smoke. And lastly, you can do a periodic health examination. Okay, that's all from me. I hope you will get a clearer picture about this topic. Take care and stay safe.